Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are here for Growing Your Business AMA with CanWCC member and trusted partner, Heather Fraser. And we are so excited to have you join us here for this 1 hour Ask Me Anything, where Heather will answer all your questions about the principles and practice of business design or how business design can create and sustain value for you and your business. And now let me introduce you to your host today, CanWCC member and our trusted partner, Heather Fraser. Heather is the visionary founder of VUKA Works, a company dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs to turn their ideas into successful businesses. Her vast experience from pioneering business design at the Rotman School of Management to founding VUKA Works has equipped her with a deep understanding of how to build and sustain a successful business. So without further ado, I am happy to welcome Heather here. And Heather, why don't you start by sharing about your journey in becoming a business design expert and maybe a little bit about what business design is?
Great. Well, thanks, Jenna. And hello, everyone. It's great to be here. And I'm very excited to be part of the community. You're a very engaged community. And, already I've had a number of exchanges with people, which is very exciting. My journey in a nutshell is I started my career at Procter & Gamble, corporate world, all about business. When I was there, I learned how to work with teams and how to sell ideas up the ranks in order to get support for my business. But then I thought, what if I could be creative all the time? So I went into advertising and design. I first went to a big global agency, and then I had my own agency with 2 creative partners, which was very exciting. And there I learned that the idea often forms a strategy, but you do need to be able to link the magic of an idea with the logic that comes behind strategy and having a business idea. Then I serendipitously had this opportunity to go into academia. Never thought of myself as an academic. Maybe I'm more of a pracademic, but I went to the Rotman School, as Jenna mentioned, and pioneered a discipline called business design, along with a very visionary dean, Roger Martin. There, I worked over the years to hone this discipline. I wrote a couple of books, which are very deep and rigorous about stories and methodologies and how you wrap your head around this. And then I went on to teach 10,000 people about business design and work with companies all over the world. I also have a LinkedIn learning course where another 10,000 people have taken the course. But I was always asking the question, and I'll tell you a bit more about what business design is all about. I was always asking the question, this is so valuable as a practice for anybody in any sector, in any stage of a venture, just to wrap their head around what are they really trying to do with their business? How can more people have access to this? Which is what led me to the digital world and what I do now with VUKA. So what is business design, you're asking yourself? I don't know how many of you have heard of business design or know much about it, but it's basically taking the best of business and design and putting them together and looking at great companies that have had success, sustained success, that have a vision for their business and over time that's been fulfilled. They're always asking 3 questions. Who matters to our success? Who in the market matters? And what do they need? The second is, how can we create a better experience for them that will fulfill those needs? And the third question is, how can we turn that into a business? How will we deliver, capture value, and sustain that business over time? Now, it sounds simple, but in a complex world, there's so many complicated processes out there. It's just a lot to swallow, complicated diagrams and prescriptive processes. But these 3, what we call the 3 gears of business design, anchor everything you do. It kind of helps you speed up because it's always making you think about the people, the solution, and what that business looks like. So that's essentially what business design is all about. There's more to it, but it's very intuitive. Anybody can learn it. And it becomes a lifelong practice. So once you embrace these principles and practices, it enables you to kind of toggle between the magic and the logic all the way through so that you'll really accelerate your progress and have focus and vision to where you want to take your business. So that's a long intro about me and business design, but maybe that'll get us started in the discussion about how questions you have about business design, but also where you think you have gaps in your thinking about your business. Who wants to start with a question? Or shall I start with a question?
There are no bad questions, so please feel free to ask away.
Hi. It's Maheshi. Sorry, I've got my camera off because I'm in a very sweaty day today. Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. My question is, honestly, I feel like since starting my business and wanting to be connected to different knowledge bases and incubators and whatnot, I've done this who are the people and what do we need to do, and all those strategical, this is what goes in the book part. And I feel like I've got a really good story or a business strategy written out, and I've got an awesome idea and I'm getting really good feedback from people. But I think where I'm struggling is that connection from the written things to the actual business happening, and being able to kind of smoothly grow that. Maybe I'm where I need to fill my gaps is getting in touch with a mentor. I don't know, but I feel like that's where I'm struggling a lot, because if you ask me, I've done 500,000 questions about the strategy of my business, and I've designed it, and I've sourced everything that I need to do. I think where I'm struggling is finding that flow of connecting A to B. Any advice there?
So it's good for you for having figured it all out about where you want to go. The key thing with business design and any kind of entrepreneurial world, I mean, I've been in the entrepreneurial world myself, is that you need to be constantly toggling back and forth between this logic and magic, and you need to be agile. You need to be agile in mindset, the methods that you use, the decisions that you make. And building a business is an iterative process. It's you just have to keep going, and you have to be aware to know this isn't working, I'll try something different, but also kind of deliberate in what you're trying to learn in order to best advance your business. So it's a matter of agility and awareness and just sticking with it in a pretty iterative process. And also, it's sometimes being willing to pivot. So is it the execution that you're challenged with, or is it just staying the course?
I think it's the execution part. I think there's a lot of problems or a lot of questions and details that I don't really know about the systems of business and how to get into those systems to make sure that what I'm doing is working. I think that's where I'm struggling.
The systems. And how many people are on your team?
Just me. That's probably one of the reasons.
You're wearing a lot of hats. Well, that would be a situation where if you're on your own as a solopreneur, it's helpful to have a bunch of advisors and mentors. And people are always willing to help and coach people with ambition and vision. So you can't, one of the things that we do in our work is who's on the team. And the team's not just the people that work for you. It's this huge network of people that you can call on for something very specific. So knowing what you're stuck on and finding someone who knows how to get you unstuck is really important when you're on your own. Because being an entrepreneur can be kind of a lonely life in some ways, unless you have a lot of friends who can help you out. And even on something like CanWCC, you could reach out and say, I really am stuck on where to find a supplier for this. someone will have an answer. So your network is also your source of support through your journey.
Okay, thank you.
Who else has it all figured out? Does everybody have it all figured out?
I don't have it all figured out, but I really liked what you said about the mentors and like having those trusted advisors around you. I know, like, for me personally, I have a daily call with someone that I call every morning. We talk about our day. We talk about what we're going to get done that day just to hold ourselves accountable and also get feedback on the thing we're going to do. And I think that, advisor system is also something you could do here at CanWCC. Like if you posted, hey, this is my business, I'm looking for 2 or 3 people that want to meet with me, and like kind of create your own mini mastermind and just have people give you feedback on things like that. You could totally do that here.
Yeah. And the mentors are helpful when it comes to how do you operationalize your idea, but also throughout the whole process, your other source of inspiration and support is your customers. Like you can never have enough feedback from customers. And when you get stuck and something doesn't seem to be working and you don't know why it's not working, or you want to make it better, customers, we call that co-creation, are an incredible source of not only ideas and inspiration, but reality checks. Sometimes you get inside your own head and you don't actually see things the way they see things. So you have to kind of turn it around and how they see the world, how they see your solution, how they see your service or your products, and use that as another source of advice, if you will.
Ruha had posted in her introduction in the chat that, she's ready to grow and trying to decide on which direction to move in a sustainable way. So any advice on, it's really easy to have a whole bunch of ideas, especially as an entrepreneur. You're like, oh, I'm going to do a weekly chat. Oh, I'm going to do this on social media, or, I'm going to do this kind of thing. Like, how do you narrow down the idea to find the direction that you want to go on? And Ruha, if you want to add anything to this, please feel free to come off mute.
No, I'm doing what I do and I love what I'm doing because I always have ideas. And as much as I'm excited for the growth, everything's distracting. And I think part of it too is that my business exists online and I spend a lot of time online, and I'm inundated with messaging from everyone else who's telling me that I need to do it this way and I need to do it that way. And sometimes it's hard to come back to, okay, what do I need as a business, and what do my clients need, and what do I need to prioritize? And for me, sustainability is really important too, because I am a solopreneur. I don't want to manage a creative team. I might pull in people to support with some parts of the business, but I want to keep it simple and I want to keep it flexible. And then the other thing that I struggle with is I have so much support around me. I don't always know what to ask for when someone offers to help.
So there's a few things. One is, even if you're on your own and you're online or you're in business, you still need to go. It helps to be really clear about your business idea. So, for example, you might find, because I've done what you do, and I found that at some point you find you're wasting a lot of time with the wrong clients or the wrong opportunities. So you need to be more razor sharp about who is it that you actually want to work with. What's the more specific definition of your target group? What do you want to be able to offer them, and what do you not want to be able to offer them? Because sometimes it's, like, well, I could do that and I could do this. And then all of a sudden you're all over the place and it just doesn't really feel like you're doing the thing you really want to be doing. But if you're clear about who you want to serve and you're clear about what you want to do, then you need to build a business that has like a whole bank of designers or a whole network of these kind of people that you can grow on. And when you have a really clear picture and focused picture of what it is you want to do, it's kind of like jet fuel. All those distractions, you just have to be, brave enough to say it's a distraction. and I could go wandering off in that direction, but I'm going to water down what I really want to do. And if you really want to stand for something, you need to kind of stick to those choices, keeping an eye, of course, open for new opportunities. But it does kind of help speed you up. And when you're getting ideas from all directions, I know what that's like. It's good, keep an open mind to those ideas, but also be willing to say no, yes, no, yes, filter through those two. But that's where, if you have this filter, so a business idea and the work in business design is really about creating a filter to help you be more focused. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I was just writing that one down too, because I was like, creating a filter. I know for myself, I'm also an entrepreneur. So I'm out there like looking for contracts, and sometimes it's not the work that lights me up, but at the same time, I'm like, I have to pay the bills. And so that filter though really helps you. Like, I just avoid the filter is essentially what I'm saying. I've avoided the filter. I'm lucky to have found CanWCC, which definitely fits my filter of like feminist business, feminist, perspectives in business. But like other things that come at me just get me distracted from doing that. And so when you're building this filter, like what kind of questions should you consider in terms of like, how do I know if I want to say yes or no? Because I know for myself, like my filter would be, is it going to pay me a good chunk of money? I might say yes to that. And so that can't be the only driver.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? In a survival mode, money sort of becomes a big part of the filter. But we used to say, back in my advertising days, we had this filter. It was pretty simple. It was, are they the right fit? Which is, do I want to work with them? Are they the type of person, like you might want to avoid certain categories, you might want to, or certain types of businesses, you want to avoid, corrupt people or something, but you got like, is this a fit? Like, can we be productive together? The next thing that we used to look for is a canvas, which means, is there an opportunity for me to make a difference? Or do they just want me to go in and diddle around with some little executional thing, and it's not going to be very satisfying? But could I really add value to their business and make an impact? And then the third is money. Will they pay for it? And do they have money? And sometimes what you do is you decide, they fit the other two. It's not a lot of money, but boy, could I make a big difference. Like if you're working for a charity or something. Sometimes you're going to work for free, but it's important because it's building your credentials as part of your portfolio. So you can have some clients that will pay like a lot of money and some clients that won't pay as much money. And they can exist in the same sort of way. So that might be a filter. That was a simple filter that we used to use. And we actually got to a position where people were lined up to work with us. We never really pitched business per se. We had a reputation and we kind of stuck to our guns on this filter. But you also then think, okay, well, will that put me in a little micro position? But if you think through the idea, like we have the software tool called VUKA Works, it helps you think through everything just to crystallize what it is you're trying to do and how you operate. And you work through, how can I make this a magical experience? How can I do more than just, here's a service? It's how that service works. So your relationship with clients, the way they experience it. Like when I was at Taxi, we had like a whole process that made it an engaging collaboration. It was a great experience. I always felt like super cool to be working with us. It's because we gave them clothes, we gave them gear. But then you want to think through, okay, well, how do you think about that as a business model and to make sure that you have enough? So you have to think about, well, what are my channels going to be? Like, am I going to go through a network? Am I going to go to events? Am I going to advertise somewhere. There's lots of ways to get to the market. You have to figure out what's the best way to get the most number of people that are the right people. So there's a whole go-to-market channel strategy you need to think about. And you also need to think about what do you need to be really good at. And people often will ignore their blind spots. It's like, okay, I'm not really good at that. Like I worked with a lawyer and he was going digital and he realized he needed to become good at marketing, but only by going through this process because he kept ignoring it because he wasn't good at it. So just because you're not good at something doesn't mean you should ignore it, because maybe it's important enough to you having this, massive impact. So you think through that. I mean, that's what business design is all about. It's about thinking about your options, about being creative, about how can you achieve your goals, what might that experience look like, and making decisions to focus to ultimately have the most impact that you can. That makes sense? Great.
Yeah, that was awesome. Who else has a question for Heather? I see a lot of head nodding and people agreeing. There's another question here in the chat from Zahara. And they're saying they're trying to figure out what the right version of growth looks like for my work after initial traction with clients and services. Zahara,
So does it?
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask her if she wants to, if they want to come off mute and add anything to that, give a little context. Well, there's also some other context here. Zahara is an accountant and fractional CFO.
Right.
Oh, yes, they're in a public space, so they'll type in the chat anything else they want to go deeper on.
Great.
The right version of growth.
So are you saying initial traction with a client, meaning I've got a client, now what? Or I've got enough of clients, how do I get more? Those are two different things. There's traction or there's like seeing through existing clients.
Like retention?
Yeah, retention and building the relationship. I mean, my experience has been if you really treat that client well and you're like so much fun and so smart and you add so much value, they're going to love you and be back for more. So building the value of a client is your first business development opportunity. Between growing as an advisor for coaching service versus growing as a service provider. So an advisor, so being a coach versus having a service, those are totally different businesses. Yeah, totally different businesses. And it's interesting, what a little parallel to what I've done is I used to be the one that taught the 10,000 people. And it's like, believe me, that's like a lot of people. Like, over time, it's like, okay, I don't want to do one more course or one more workshop. But even though I loved it, it's a lot. So I kind of codified that methodology and brought other people on board and certified them to do the work that I do. So by teaching others, they can become your ambassadors and they can do the work. And what you're looking for is a way that everybody wins. And nobody can do everything all by themselves. Being being on your own and being the only one that knows how to do it is not, it's okay, but there's a limit to that. And by finding other people who also want to do that, so this idea of being a service provider to transfer your knowledge and skills as a proven way to go about it can actually bring other people on and expand your influence. Is that kind of get at what you're looking for or thinking about, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. What else are you thinking?
Hi. Well, perhaps I have a question to ask, and I think it has come up before. So I've been a service provider in graphic design and branding for the past 15 years. My business started, pushing a lot of networking, referrals, and as you said before, keep the client very happy, and then they'll keep coming back, right?
Yeah.
So after, I would say, a year or so, it was kind of playing in auto mode. I didn't have to look for new clients because my agenda was full, and I wasn't looking to grow from solopreneur into a full business. That changed over COVID, and I haven't been able to recover since then in
Yeah.
full. And in fact, I mean, some of my clients weren't able to recover. So by default, that affects my business. And I'm finding very hard to get new clients right now, and more than ever. I've been learning the new way because 15 years ago, there was not the wide social media that we have right now. And I've been doing a lot of it, but I would like to hear if you have any recommendations because it has been successful to a very small scale, I would say.
Well, that's a tough one because you're not the only one that has struggled. I think COVID certainly took the wind out of all our sales, and it's not easy right now. And to make it even harder, people are. I have one tip for you, but people in general, I find, are in a kind of a post-traumatic stress syndrome here from COVID. Like they're just not really the way it was before COVID. People are overwhelmed. People are a little bit checked out. Everybody's remote, so nobody's really connected anymore. And it's crazy how many people, clients in your case, are unhappy with the way things are and kind of lonely. And so they are not quick to invest. They're not quick to do what they know they should be doing. And because they think it's going to be either too expensive and I don't have the money, or it's going to be too hard and I just don't have the energy. So one tip is to think about how you can make it so easy. When you find new clients, is like you should always make it something easy to buy. Like the first is to celebrate what you're good at and make them, you want them to think, oh, I want some of that. And then the next thing is to make it so simple to follow through. So that's kind of a style of how you might approach it. But it does go back to thinking about who do you want to work with? What do you want to offer? And then thinking about those channels, about how do you get out there? And then there's the fork in the road. Like, do you want to be on your own, or do you want to have like a little agency? And if you want to be on your own, that's a different model. You could totally benefit by going to, for example, a whole bunch of advertising agencies and being a freelancer, being like a subcontractor to them. I know a lot of people that do that now because I know a lot of people running agencies who don't have the financial means to be hiring a lot of people like they used to maybe 10 years ago. So one you got a model question here. Do you go in as a support for another business, or do you want to build your own business? You kind of have to really think back, and it depends where you are in life and what your personal situation is and where your career situation is. But you're gonna have to make a personal choice about what will create a happy life for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's actually very helpful, and it gives me some things to think about. So after COVID, I was doing this part-time, and I thought I will go back to this full-time and create an agency for the first time, because before I was a solopreneur and I did have some service providers. But I am finding myself that, as they were saying before, we have to pay the bills, and I don't have enough work just for myself. So I think maybe I have to rethink that one as well.
And there's nothing bad. I know a lot of people that have gone off on their own, and then they're like, you know what, I should have never left. Maybe I should go get a job. Go get a job. It's not a bad idea. You could always form a relationship with a good agency or like a good agency, and then go from there. So you got lots of forks in the road. You get a job, you could be a freelancer to them, or you could start your own agency. What's your timeline? And then look for the bridge. I'm actually going to write another book, but this time it's about serendipity. It's about know what your options are. And then when some serendipitous opportunity pops up as a bridge to where you eventually want to go, hop on it. Because it might not be, the next thing might not be what you ultimately want to do, but it might be like the next lily pad in the pond.
That's awesome. Thank you. And that was very insightful.
Yeah. I love that. And, it actually brought me, oh, sorry, Jenny, if I interrupted you, you can go again.
No, I was done. You were perfect timing.
I was just coming back to your first point, Heather, when you were listing the 3 points in the business design. Was it that one or was the other one? It was, can we be productive together? And I think, Jenny, that answers your question. And like, if what you want to build is like, can I be productive together? And will we make a difference? Can we make a difference together? Right? In that kind of like, would this one serve me? Can I make a difference over here? Or, should I do this other thing? Like, if you were to start your own agency, could you make a difference with that? Versus doing it on your own? I just love those questions. I've honestly written them down. I have a whole page of things that Heather said already. So Tara has put a note in the chat. You were talking about marketing, and I've been doing some social media and posting flyers around for my bookstore and dropping my business cards around, but I don't seem to be getting any customers. I've had one, and I don't have any budget for paid marketing. Well, coming to events like this is
so tell me a bit about the bookstore.
Can you come off mute, Tara?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened there. So anyways, so it's just like a small online bookstore, and I really mostly started it as a platform to sell my own books. Like I said in the chat, I'm a writer too, and I've published a book series. But also I wanted to sell some other like harder to find books, like with LGBTQ subject matter or by Canadian authors. So yeah, that's like my platform there. And I've been doing some marketing, like whatever I could find that won't cost money, because I at the moment don't have a steady source of income other than my bookstore, but it doesn't seem to really be working. So
who's the target for your bookstore?
I mean, just anybody who's like a big reader, like maybe like people around my age, like sort of like young adult to adults, anybody with like some disposable income. And at the moment, since I haven't been able to figure out how to sell ebooks, like people who like normal books, like actual physical ones.
And what do you write about? What you personally?
Well, my books are like, I like fantasy, so I kind of made like an LGBTQ fantasy thriller kind of thing.
So is that your target?
Yeah, that's kind of like what I sell, those kinds of books.
Well, then what you could do is you could, and you could be really razor sharp about who your target is.
Okay.
And I think if you think about it keeps going back to understanding the people that you want to connect with. If you really understand them, you don't just put a book out in front of them. You got to have some insight, some motivator. It's like advertising, you got to have like some hook. So being as specific about your target, who you want to connect with and who you want to ultimately have buy these books, like that will help you sort of hone your your messaging. But there's also like a million different channels for that, when you think about it. Oh my gosh, there's so many groups that you can go to and events that you can be at, and make it sort of a celebration, of a specific group that's of interest to you. And that's where in business, this creative process and analytical, you got to go back and forth, because you can be, analytical about making choices and being very specific about tactics and number of people and that sort of thing. But you can also be very creative about, well, how do you get to them? You have to always be creative and always be thinking about, what's the best way to get there. Events, through associations, through networks. If you said to yourself, I want to get to this group, how can I reach them? And you brainstorm around all the ways that you can get to that group, and really push yourself and jam with other people. I think you might find that there's some kind of clever ways to intervene in the marketplace that aren't the same old social media. I know exactly what you're talking about, because I don't know what to do about social media. It's a noisy marketplace. So you got to kind of zig when they zag and come up with a different way.
Okay.
But we're really clear about the target group. Really clear about the target group. And I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested in seeing something that you've actually put out there in social media, but it might not be as poignant and clear as it needs to be. That would be my challenge, without having seen anything.
Well, I mean, I put my website like in the thing there, so I mean, you could look at that. And then I also have like all my social media on the website if you want to look at that.
Where's your website right there?
It should be near the beginning there. It's called Tara's Tomes.
Okay.
Yeah, Tara,
thank you.
I just put in the chat roller derby. Roller derby. That's your.
I don't know if there's like any of that in my area though. Like Victoria's pretty like.
Victoria
quiet.
has like 3 leagues.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, and Vancouver has a huge league, and yeah, I can help you. I'm in the community, and I think Ashley just replied. Ashley also is pretty good at target audiences here. Yeah, comics and gaming stores. Yeah, Ashley knows this too, because
that's what I own with my husband, and we've done this with some graphic novelists and small novelists too locally. It's just like, we'll display the books and get like 5% of the cut of the sale. So
cool. Where's your store?
In Peterborough, Ontario. But I know a lot of the smaller, they're called SGS. They're smaller gaming stores, and often they sell comics and graphic novels, and they're totally open to do it because you share a community, and that's really what it's based around.
Okay, cool. Thank you. No problem.
Okay, Sarah, come and tell us about your baby newborn idea.
Okay, so I'm just in the concept stage of my business, and I'm working with a business coach, and I had this like huge dream, and she kind of like pulled me back in. It's like, this is great, let's do it in phases. So my biggest part of my dream is I want to be a yoga therapist, and I had to get my yoga teacher training certificate to enroll in that into the therapy program. So I've got my yoga teacher training, and now I'm just kind of like playing with that and like getting myself out there and kind of networking with others that like that do different types of things like Reiki healing and sound bowl healing and stuff like that. But I had this big dream that I was going to open this studio where I can do my yoga therapy out of, and have a juice bar, and have classes, like yoga classes running. I would have like staff that would run the classes for me. But now the business coach has kind of like pulled me back and said, let's start smaller, because there's many like platforms here that you're trying to work with, and that's a lot to take on as like a sole person. So I'm gonna start with becoming like an online presence while I do my yoga therapy training for the next 2 years. And then when I go from there, open my own studio when I've kind of like, made contacts and got myself out there that people know who I am and what I'm bringing. And and then it's like kind of like a yeah, like a following, and then they want to come to my place. And there's so many yoga studios out there that I want to stand out, like, and how can I make that happen? Um, and yeah, I think my presence is one thing for sure, but just creating this brand for myself and kind of going from there. So, like I said, I'm like brand new to this. I'm still in the development and concept stage of this. So, no specific questions, but any ideas and suggestions would be lovely. Yeah.
So it's interesting, that you got reined in, because I would say no, cut the reins,
Oh,
because you can start small with a big vision. There are so many yoga studios out there, like yoga people everywhere, and it's a very on trend, noisy market. So how do you stand out in that? One is a philosophy, one is your brand. But you can, even with VUKA, it's like the brand is what people love because it has meaning. It means to awaken and stir into action. It's a Zulu word. But you really need to understand what that kind of heartbeat is for you. But then the experience, like maybe you don't have a studio right now, but you could do a pop-up studio, like you could kind of replicate that, like you could try it, try a space. You also could think about what that experience is. So one person that used VUKA during COVID to survive was a trainer at Equinox. There are no training sessions in Equinox during COVID, so he decided to start it online. But he and he's super good at what he does. But he developed it as more than just let's go on Zoom and do some exercises. He said, I think what you need is I'm going to put together a whole package for you. I'm going to have like your kettlebell and your this and your this and your, all these things. And I think you could use these bands. And he would package them all up and kind of brand them. And it didn't cost him anything. He just bought them and then marked them up. But he started to create this experience that was a little different and a little bit more special and very high end. So it's, and then you could do a pop-up to say, what would it be like to do it in a real space? I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do, but you don't want to not do the things that you envision in the future because it's not the time to do that in a big way. You want to just try it in the lowest cost way you possibly can, but to put it together as a fun offering that stands out. And that's where I go back to business design. Often I find that people have an idea. They have an idea and it's vague and it's too unidimensional. We use this framework called poems when you're coming up with ideas. What kind of people could help that experience? What kind of objects could we give them? Like exercise bands. What kind of environment could we create, like a pop-up store? What kind of messages would we want to give them in media so that they could access, what they needed to know when they needed to know it, and what kind of services, which would be the actual yoga teaching itself. So you want to think more multidimensional, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. People think that big ideas cost a lot of money. They don't. There's a baby step toward a big idea that's totally a learning experiment that will help you create a richer, more distinct offering. And then you ask people about it. You go through the whole feedback process, co-create with your experienced people. There's on VUKA Works, there's a worksheet. There's a lot on VUKA Works. I'll talk about that at the end, but there's a worksheet that helps you think through all the different dimensions at all the different stages of an experience of working with you. What does that look like? And then you just start you make it concrete, and you try it, and then you build it in, you weave it into the whole experience.
I love that. Thank you, Heather. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now we only have about 10 minutes left here with Heather. So if you have a question, this is your opportunity to get it answered. And if not, I'm going to come with another one. So you better come off mute. Come off mute.
I just have a quick question. For the poems that you said, what was the P and the O stand for again, Heather?
People and objects.
Objects. Thank you.
So for example, in Nespresso, the coffee stores, the people that stand behind the counter and let you try all the coffees, they're called ambassadors. That would be a people. It's not people like your customers. It's like, who can you put in place to actually add value to the experience? And objects are, clear. That's like a exercise band or clothes or something. They're things. I bet if anybody, even if you think you get your business all figured out, I bet if you tried this product we have called VUKA Works, I bet you would find some gaps. I'm pretty sure. I sit through hundreds of pitches and there's gaps all over the place, but they don't know there's gaps, but the investors know there's gaps, and they haven't thought this through, or they don't know, how does it get from A to B, and who are they really serving? And the more thinking that you do up front about these things, in terms of exploring all your options and then assessing them and making decisions, the more that you do up front, the faster you'll pick up momentum. There's a company called Dealum that does like deal flow stuff. And they said, oh my gosh, these people that put their apply for capital on our global platform, they just don't even know what they're doing, and yet they're asking for capital. And she said, so the way she quoted it, she said, you could just go through trial and error for the rest of your life, trying to figure out where's it all going to go and how does it add up to a business. Or you could go through this VUKA Works process and you could think it through up front to build momentum going forward. But people say, oh, I don't have time to think about that. Well, yeah, but you seem to have years to waste, I'm being kind of harsh, but I see it all the time. I know people that have spent millions of dollars in 5 years when they could have probably thought a lot of that through and saved themselves at least $4.5 million and at least 4 years. Nobody has time to waste, but we don't think we have time to spend. That's the silly irony of life.
That's so powerful. There we go. I'm off mute. That was so powerful, Heather. And we offer a discount. Heather is one of our trusted partners. I put the link in the chat. So all of the CanWCC annual members can access that. And that is, these programs that Heather's talking about are available with this discount. It's like a massive discount across the whole VUKA Works system. So whatever you're looking for, it's there. So check it out. And I just, I wrote so many things down, just summaries of this whole conversation, who matters and what do they need? How can we fulfill that need? What ideas can we create to fulfill those needs? Another thing I just wrote down was agility, awareness, and pivoting, 3 keys to business almost. Creating a filter to help you be more focused. When we were talking about that conversation with Ruha, can we be productive together? Can we make a difference together? The money filter, and those were just examples of the possible filters, right? So this is just from this conversation with Heather. So you can probably get the gist of what is inside VUKA Works to really help you narrow that down. And yes, saving that time off the top. I know I've tried so many different business ideas, only to not get the success and be like, okay, well, I guess it's not that one. And, you know, just trying it and it flops. And then you're like, well, I'll just go back to the drawing board and start all over again, where that's a waste of time. If I would have just sat down and gone through the VUKA Works to figure it out and set up the structures that I wanted and the understand who I want to help, and, you know, getting the right people, being productive together, seems like it would make such a difference. Is there anything else you want to add, Heather, about VUKA Works that we should know about?
So there's two products that are on there. One is what we call the Business Signing Accelerator, which is, you know, basically you can spend $100,000 on an MBA, you can spend $200 on this. It's the 26 best lessons that people tell me they've gotten from the learning on business design, all in little bite-sized video. I know somebody in India right now that's starting a big clothing company, and they put this on their big screen TV, and they followed the whole thing, and they say, aha, now I see how all the pieces fit together, and it all forms the logic behind what you're trying to do with your business. That's what we call the accelerator. And then the other thing, VUKA Works, you know, again, it's like $1 million worth of consulting and a $200 piece of software. and it's not lightweight. Like, it's not like a business model canvas where you put in an answer and you're done. It's kind of really pushes your thinking to be more expansive and then more decisive. And it's iterative. Like, what it does is it takes all your answers and it creates a story. So you've got one kind of stream of logic on what you're trying to do with your business, and you can send it to people and get feedback with their scorecard. You can edit it over time. You might learn something new and decide, I don't want to go after that target group. You can change it, but it becomes kind of a living document for where you're taking your business. I think it's like the best bargain going. But an entrepreneur might say, well, I don't have a couple $100. Well, it's like, okay. I think you might learn something, you know. It can only, and the point is to help to give everybody access to this way of thinking and kind of rewire, you know, the way you think every day on a more strategic versus executional, but it will absolutely guide you executionally.